Good morning, everybody. I think we're live. It usually takes a couple of seconds just for everyone to kick in. Hi, Gavin. How are you?
I am. Yeah, not bad. You?
What's that?
How are you? Sorry.
I didn't quite hear that. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Garrett is here. He's not feeling 100%. So how are you, Garrett?
I'm surviving. I'm forgiving people from seeing my horrible pale face. Yeah, no, really looking forward to today. I think it's going to be amazing. Probably one of my favorite days of the year now, or events of the year. So yeah, I think everybody's gonna enjoy it, especially not having to see my face.
I was going to make a joke about it's usually grey anyway, but
that is true.
I'll give sympathy.
Everybody knows it's you causing me to go grey, Ciaran.
Okay, well, we're just getting started. Hopefully, everybody can see my presentation at the minute, which is the welcome screen. Maybe just see now.
Present mode. Yeah, I can see it now, Ciaran.
Yep, everybody can see it, and then the people who aren't speakers can see it. So yeah, welcome to the 2020 World Tour. It's unusual times. We've had world tours before that had funny impacts. I think one year we had a tram got rerouted by a lorry outside the Ashling Hotel, which had a bit of an impact. And I think Ed Sheeran had an impact one year as well, with the concert being on the same day. But this year we have COVID, so naturally we're doing the world tour from everybody's from home or from their office. I'm here in the IMGS office, a bit lonely. I'm here on my own. So we're doing the world tour. So we'd like to welcome everyone. The funny thing is this year is we actually have record attendance and record registrations. So we'd like to thank you all for taking time out this morning to be here. We know it's a challenge. We know also there's a bit of digital tiredness at this point with all these online events. So hopefully you enjoy it. I think it's a great session and a great agenda we have this morning. We were due to have a welcome session for video from Don and Dale from Safe Software, the founders of Safe Software. But unfortunately, it doesn't work through the mics and everything from the video with the session. So we're going to put that link up so you'll be able to see the video and hear from the guys. And it's a nice video. Welcome everybody to the Irish World Tour. As you can see, the World Tour 2020, it hasn't stopped. There's been 72 virtual stops in 27 countries. So it kept going during this all, and you can see it's all four corners of the globe as well, which is great to see. This morning, just want to meet you at the wellness team. Again, the theme of the World Tour this year is serenity and getting serenity from your data. Safe love these teams, as we know. So the team is myself, Ciaran Kirk, I'm the operations director. Garrett, who will be helping and has been doing a great job arranging everything. Gavin will be presenting a lot of our side of things, and then Stephen Call, who is our support desk manager, will be in the IMGS booth, expo booth or virtual booth area to answer any of your questions. With Stephen will also be Aditya Dote, who is our data engineer. Aditya actually worked on some of the analytics webinars that you're going to, analytics demos we're going to show later on, and actually help Gavin with some of the workflows. So Aditya can answer any of the technical questions on anything you're seeing this morning. And as ever, making sure everything comes together and bringing this event together, particularly this year, which has been doubly challenging, and as we had to go find an online solution to be able to do this webinar virtually and this event virtually, is Tanya McDonald, who's our marketing exec. And Tanya, again, will be coordinating in the background and making sure everything goes okay this morning. We have a great agenda. So as I said, Garrett unfortunately isn't feeling the best this morning, so he will chirp in when he gets a chance. So to welcome you, you're going to have to listen to my dulcet tones. After this, then myself and Gavin are going to talk about ordering and automation with FME 2020 and 2021. Anyone who's been to the World Tour over the years will always know that we start with a kind of what's new in the product. So you might go, well, where's that session gone? Well, actually what is new is that Safe are now turning FME into a platform where you can auto workbenches in desktop and automate them in server. And yes, this session is covering the what's new, but definitely driven from that new messaging. The we're going to give small, short breaks just to give people a comfort second. You stay on your link. You don't leave the session. We'll come back. Just gives you a set couple of minutes to go out, get a cup of tea, do whatever you might need to do, and then come back. And then we have 3 great presentations in the second session. So John Hawkins, who's a regular contributor to our events, is going to talk about improving public services one transformer at a time. And again, John's also an excellent speaker. And this year is taking a different slant on what we're doing from the usual, problem solution FME presentations. Then myself and Gavin are going to talk about actionable analytics with FME. So we'll be showing how we've integrated FME with our business intelligence platform, SciSense, and Snowflake as a data warehouse, and how Gavin and Aditya have built this really clever workflow building machine learning to create predictive analytics insight using FME. And then Ciara, our old friend, is going to be back to present about connecting Esri systems across the organisation in Ordnance Survey Ireland. So great to have Ciara back speaking. As we all know, Ciara used to be presenting in these world tours on the other side of the house. After the next break, then we're going to have a very interesting and very relevant presentation from Frank Burke on creating a map-centric COVID-19 call center system, again using FME. So a great way that local authorities have been seen to support the COVID-19 response in providing local services to sick and the elderly. Then Gavin is going to talk about FME automations and some of the latest integrations and with webhooks, and also we have a nice demonstration where we're going to show a local authority planning data capture workflow using Map Enterprise, and it then being integrated with FME to do reporting, which is really, really cool. And then we had planned just before the break that Natalia from Cyro was going to speak about the distance to network analysis project that we worked on with Cyro, but unfortunately Natalia's had a family bereavement and can't make it today. So I will give my view of what Natalia of our solution and what we're doing with FME. Hopefully afterwards we'll be able to share you Natalia's presentation so you can see what she was going to present on, and we wish Natalia condolences for during this time. Then just before the break, we're going to talk to the we're going to have a small break, and then Jorge from Dublin Airport will talk about the indoor mapping project for the terminals and how they use FME there. Again, excellent idea, and really shows. We talked about indoor mapping a number of times at the World Tours, and it's great then to see that in action in a real world customer. And then we'll all come back and do a wrap up and close out. And there will be the usual swag. So everybody who attends today gets a swag item, which is a nice lizard eye mask. So if you want to be able to relax and get some sleep and rest the eyes, and it's a nice little thing. We will be sending feedback forms online afterwards, so hopefully you can fill them in and give us your feedback, because it's very important, particularly with the virtual conference this year, that we're able to get your feedback and know what we can do better. A lot of people like the new, always like to get the transformer guides at these events. Again, in the last couple of years, we don't print them because of the use of paper, but it is in the expo area. It's in the booth. You can download it and you can get the guide there. Okay, it wouldn't be a world tour without some games and some quizzes. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have the fun we normally have face-to-face, but there is a gamification. So if everybody attends a session, every session you attend, you get 5 points. If you visit the IMGS Expo, you get 5 points. If you download the content from the Expo, you get 5 points. And if you ask a question in the Expo area, you get 20 points. So really try and trick Aditya and Stephen there with some good questions. And then we know our FME World Tour attendees are usually very good at participating in these kind of things. So there will be a tournament, and we will give prizes, nice prizes for the people who get the most points. If it's a draw, if everybody does everything and we can't separate you, then we will do a random pick out just to figure out who gets the nice prizes. There is a very, very nice FME World Tour robe, bathrobe, which Tanya has made sure has been kept in the box, and nobody was able to in IMGS take it for a walk or find its way out of the office. It's definitely been eyed up by a lot of people. So a really nice gift, and some other wee things from Safe Software there as well. So without further ado, myself and Gavin are going to kick off with the first session, and that's around the authoring and automating. So I'm just going to flick presentation, and I'm going to kill my Outlook so we're not getting emails during the session, and go into the author and auto, and I'll fire this up. Gavin, you're good to go?
Yep, no good.
Okay, and I think we're not too far off time. Okay, so as I mentioned already, we're now introducing the FME platform. For years, we always talked about the three products: desktop, server, and cloud. So desktop is where you build and run your workflows, server to automate, and cloud is just server inside Amazon. So, but now we really want to talk about how you can author your workflows inside desktop and then automate them with server. And a server now is not just because is more than just a web version of, to run the system. It's now, because of the automations, because of the level of integration, a lot of the tools now in server, it is more of an enterprise automation platform. So inside our workbench, we can author the data. So we all know FME. For those who are new to FME, on the left-hand side, we have our transformers. We bring the data in, we do something with it, and then we export data out. So this is our authoring. We're authoring the data, getting it ready to do something. And then once it's in server, we automate it. And with the automations now in server, it's getting really easy to automate these workflows, to make them dynamic, to make them enterprise. So FME really is going from being, I think, a niche solution to being an enterprise platform. Actually backed up this year by Safe Software and FME being Gartner recognized as a niche provider in the Gartner quadrant for ETL, which is just fantastic. We've been an FME partner for, 15, 16 years now. It's fantastic to see Safe Software and FME now being recognized at that level. So going back to the old kind of format, what's new with our workspace authoring, and what's new with FME Desktop? So we have, as ever, with Safe Software, with FME, we have performance gains and everything's faster. FME, the guys in Safe are great. They're always looking to improve. They're always looking to improve performance. So this year we've an upgrade of the shapefile and Excel reader writer. Many of the transformers are faster, including the statistics calculator and bufferer. And now the FME data inspector 3 rendering frame is increased. Nice thing for, as ever, and with Safe, we always want to try and improve the developer operations to make it nicer to use, easier to use. So now you can style the connection lines in FME. You might remember a year or two ago, we were able to choose jagged lines or curved lines or whatever we want to use. Now you can actually have colored lines, so you can show one way or the other. The statistics calculator has been improved, and now we're able to leverage the feature caching more in transformers, and Gavin will show that now.
Yeah, so this one's quite a typical example. Is you often find if you make a database connection, you make a connection to a web service, you get the data back, and you can see here we don't really have any attributes. So we've got the JSON body, we've got a nice table view. We know we've got the data there, but we can't really see it on the canvas. But if you look across on that feature information panel there, you can see that FME's got the attributes. It's found them, it's brought them in, but they're not there to work with on the canvas. And that's always been a bit of a pain. You'd have to come into the transformer, and there's this kind of option at the bottom to expose them. So you can come in and you can expose those attributes, but it meant you had to manually type them in, and that meant you'd make spelling mistakes. You'd mistype things, you'd forget one. But what we can do now in 2020.1 is we can use the attribute exposer and the feature cache, and we can import this information direct from the feature cache. So we can see all of the attributes that are there. We can pick them exactly as they're spelt. There's no chance of us mistyping them, getting a capital, them being mistyped in the way we expect them to come in, and they're instantly there for us. And this is something that they're adding to a couple of transformers in the .1 release, but we're going to see a lot more of in the future releases. So it's going to become a lot easier to work with, and you can see all the attributes there now on the canvas. So it's just making life a lot easier when you're developing, and a lot easier to work with as well.
Yeah, the G Media had that for queries, where you could actually go show values, and it would give you a list of the values, so you could then pick them. But it always had a warning to say, if you do this, you could break your database, because you could hit a million record table and get a show values. So I think the caching here means this will work smart. It's not going to kill your system while you're doing your development.
Yeah, it's always going against the cache for probably the preceding transformers. So yeah, it's really optimized. You're not going to hit any of those kind of problems with this stuff.
That's pretty cool. And just on to the next one.
The one that is going to get everybody quite a little bit more excited is we can use the same thing now with some of the other transformers, including the tester. So here we've got a data set of UK and Ireland. Yeah, we only really want to focus on the Irish data. So we can obviously filter that data down. We can use the tester. Now, previously, that meant you had to try and guess what attributes were there, or you'd load it into the view, look for them. But now I can just come across, choose the attribute, and on my drop down, I can look at the cache values and I can see the exact values that are in the data. And again, this was a case where people would make little spelling mistakes, typos. You'd mess it up at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon when you were rushing. All that goes away. So here, we can say we want to look for the values. Now I want the ALB ones. I'm going to choose the ILB here because what I can do again with the test is just say it's not equal to, and I can change my logic to and. So it's got to be in Ireland, it's got to be an ALB. And for those values where we might have a lot of data, you'll notice we no longer pop up, we get the extra dialog window. So you can start to see now we've got all the different values, all the spellings, you can check the data. And I know this is something we've always been asked about when we're doing training courses and showing people. And they've safe added it now off the back of the caching, and it makes life so much easier. You can instantly see the data. You can instantly see if it's capitalized, lowercase, mixed case. It's just so much quicker to develop and easier to work with and things. So I think it's going to be a huge improvement. And it's kind of a precursor of what's going to come in a lot more of the other transformers as we move up with the releases and safe add more functionality. They've done the kind of transformers people use the most, or that like the attribute expose that will add the functionality quickly to all the other parts of your workflow.
So this is the Brexit transformer, is it?
Yep, this is the one that saves you guys.
Okay.
Get rid of that nasty country on the right.
Yeah. We'll take you over from over there, yeah. So the and as ever with a new release with FME, we get more and more data support, more and more connections. So this year we've got a writer for Google BigQuery and also for BigQuery GIS, which again, as we'll talk about in later sessions, this cloud support for the cloud data warehousing and data sources is now where the industry is moving, and Safe again are moving nicely in the right direction. And again, proven with Snowflake Reader Writer. So again, in our analytics demo later on, we're going to show how we've loaded data into Snowflake and then visualize that in SciSense. We've got some 3D support with the Entwine Point Tile Reader, Mapbox Vector Tiles Writer Mapbox. The data you can get with these guys is really nice. Proj Transformers for some more coordinate system stuff. Nifty. I was always one. I don't know what the hell that is, but it's there. And the Microsoft Direct Straw Surface is for the I think it's the Esri 3D stuff, Gavin, if you remember.
That's right, yeah, right? For their new 3D environment.
Yeah, which again is great to see. And then the CityJSON Reader Writer, which is in tech preview, and ECW compression with the version 3 ECW now supported for Reader and Writer. Big area for us is the ability to connect to machine learning. So being able to connect the services for NLP, natural language processing, and also computer vision. So, you'll be able to use these things to recognize images on the computer. So we got the Google AI connectors, Amazon, Azure, and the open source AI connectors as well. And Gavin, you're going to cover some of this in your demonstration later on this morning.
That's right. Yeah, we'll talk a little how you can use FME with your own machine learning just as much as some of the big connectors as well.
Yeah.
As I say, Dicky's done some great stuff on that, so we're going to talk through what he's done.
Yeah, that's great, and being able to do this kind of predictive analytics inside FME, it's really cool. Safe FME have always been very much at the front of BIM support and being able to handle BIM data. So again, this year we're seeing improved Revit support, so over 50 enhancements, including floor plan support and annotations. Again, control over the geometry level of detail, being able to extract a family of parameters, work set, project and view data, and being able to do indoor mapping and simplification. So again, BIM, like we anyone who's like been around as long as you and I, Gavin, CAD was always a nightmare to get CAD data into a GIS, because you had to understand the leveling and the numbering structures and all this kind of stuff, and really understand data. Now, FME always made that easy, but with BIM and now with the FME support for that, you can really extract that data nicely and not have to spend ages manipulating it, as you're going to show here.
Yeah, so this one's just bringing in the BIM data sets. Obviously, we can see that we've got this frame rate improvement. They've doubled it. It's gone from 30 frames a second to 60. So we're looking at the data inspector being a lot smoother, which is great for these sort of BIM data sets, because you can see it's going to be a lot easier to work with. It's not going to be quite as jumpy as probably some of the earlier versions of the data inspector were in 3D. And also we can come into this BIM data set, we can navigate around now. We can see what the layers are here. So we can turn on and off, different components. So I can get rid of the trees, the roof, and things as part of this. It just means you can explore that BIM data set in a little bit more detail when you want to work with the data inspector. But obviously we can do the same thing, just bringing this directly into Workbench. I can also bring in the floor plans here. So we can bring through our floor plan data from exactly the same data set as we're reading the 3D from. All of that data is now captured natively in this BIM format. We can just read that straight from the Revit data, pull it through. I can choose the floor plan. I can look at the level 1, level 2. And obviously now when we bring that in, this will bring us in with a floor plan view. And again, I can do this in Workbench, so I could bring in some of that 3D data if I wanted more of a 3D application, or if I was looking at more two-dimensional data, maybe I'm going to take it to something like the Apple data indoor mapping format. I can bring in the floor plan information, work with those floor plan data, the transformers, and actually create that as sort of my output for it, or Esri indoors and things as part of this as well. So it's a huge improvement on the old approach where you'd have to export it from a third-party export application in Revit, then try and bring that data into FME. Now it's just native. You take that Revit file, drop it straight in FME, and it just works.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And again, we're going to see, I think, in the UK, there's a lot of strong BIM standards now and in construction and having to follow BIM rules. And I think it's coming here in Ireland as well. So we're going to see more and more BIM data over the next few years, I think. So this kind of support is really fantastic. And again, we're seeing some new connectors. ArcGIS Online connectors, again, yeah, we've been able to read and write to ArcGIS Online for a while, but this new connector now provides a nice new level of functionality. And also, again, it's come in the last year or so, but being able to connect to and read and write to SharePoint, something that has been, I think, was asked at the World Tours for years. When was SharePoint support coming? It's here, and it's pretty cool, as Gavin's going to show. But now, there you go.
So this one's just the ArcGIS Online connector. So obviously, as we said, we can upload and be able to read and write from sort of AGOL platform for years now with FME. But this just means we can actually write a geodatabase locally, or any of the other file formats that FME Esri supports. And then we can upload that, and then we can publish that within a workflow. And in this case, we're then sending it to Microsoft Teams, so we can generate a new data layer and then send that alert message to people as well to say, oh, this data is now available. We can now jump to that map layer. You can go and visualize that map data and things as part of the process. So it's just, to bring that little bit more integration into your workflow. Let's say you probably wouldn't necessarily maybe want to publish your data set this way with it, but you might want to upload a GeoJSON file and publish it. If you've got some small temporary data, you might have photos. If you've got GPS encoded photos you need to upload onto AGOL, you wouldn't have been able to do that traditionally with the existing writers in FME. Now these transformers enable all of that. So they're quite rich. So we can upload data as we're just demonstrating here. You just tell it the file you want to upload, and that can be a shape file. It can be, a geodatabase if you want it to be spatial, GeoJSON. And in this example, we're just publishing it. So not only have we uploaded data, we can publish it, but we can also delete, download list. We can share data, so we can change the sharing permissions. We can update existing data that's on there as well. So you can really start to build some more complicated workflows than just upload data, into an existing layer or creating a new layer. I might want to maybe publish a layer, but then once it's been validated and verified internally, then make that available to the public, for example, say with open data and things. You can start to build those workflows with that. And obviously then, everybody's collaborating probably a lot more distributed now. So we've got things like that Teams integration to be able to notify people. And then obviously with SharePoint, we can do similar things as well. And I'll come on to the Teams stuff in the automations webinar as well.
And sort of, yeah, I just with that, Gavin, on the so literally you can just connect to a geodatabase, do an upload, and instead of maybe previously we would have had to do a number of steps to transform the geodatabase or the file before you put it to ArcGIS Online. It's literally just connecting one step and you're in. Like that's
Yep, it's literally you just upload, you point to the geodatabase you want and you upload it. So before, like you say, you might have had 4 or 5 layers in there. And you've had to have published each one.
Yeah,
now you just upload the geodatabase with all that data contained in it. And then obviously we can go through and we can list those layers, we can publish them and things, so we can make it or publish the whole of the geodatabase. This is quite a useful one, and it's not just in 2020, it's one of these new package transformers, so you can get it in 2019. So any basically version of FME that supports package transformers can just automatically download and add this transformer.
That's pretty.
It's part of where Safe are trying to get to with the whole packaging concept, to make this functionality more easily available and not tied quite so tightly to a particular version. And
it just shows, Gavin, how good we are. You're able to talk about Microsoft because you're such an Apple advocate, and I'm talking about Esri being the Hexagon advocate. So we've been very independent and neutral today, which I think is good to see as well, isn't it? Yeah.
We can use all the formats. We don't really care these days. It's
no.
It's more about the process, I think, than the technology now. It's matured quite a lot.
It is, yeah. No, it's fantastic, yeah. And now we have, that's the same one. Now we have the SharePoint.
Yep, and SharePoint's very similar. Again, it's a package transformer. So in this case, I have a workflow that creates a Word document. I'm writing that Word document out, and then I'm passing that into the SharePoint connector. FME just picks that up. I can tell it what part of the site I want it to go to, what document library I want this to go to, what path within that SharePoint environment I want to go to. Now I can set things like the permissions, what the scope of that is, who can see that data set, and if it has an expiry date and things. And then again, I can just run that workspace and it's going to upload that Word document onto my SharePoint for me. And again, because we're trying to come up with this whole, everybody's much more integrated these days, we're just creating a very simple transformer here that talks to Microsoft Teams via a webhook that includes the information about where that SharePoint is. And then we can publish that out to a group. So we can say, right, this new document's available. We've made it centrally available on the cloud. This is where that data is. Having to manage about a VPN or anything like that. Now everything's straight onto the cloud. So we've got my little notification coming through here. And at the bottom, we've got that link for the SharePoint folder. So I can come in and I can see that document now on SharePoint. And then also I've got the link, I can jump straight to it in terms of finding the Word document as well. So if we want to collaborate online on a particular document, everybody can just jump onto that link and you can go through, use all the online collaboration that's in things like 365. Or if you can do the same thing with Google Docs. If you're more of a Google technology house, you can use the Google Slack and things as well. So, all of these technologies just make it easier when people are working distributed now, and it becomes much easier to post the data around. There's a OneDrive connector as well.
Yeah. So
you can upload straight to OneDrive. This is designed to work with Office 365. So it runs on the Office 365 because that's what Microsoft have exposed all the APIs to. How well it would work on an internal hosted SharePoint, we're a little bit unsure at the moment. It may work on the newer versions if they follow the same platform as the cloud. If you have an older internal SharePoint, then it may not work as well, or it may not work functionally. But we've been trying this across organizations and things, a number of different customers, and it's working quite well. We can upload that data as long as you've got the right access and permissions, which is all controlled through the APIs, then it just works. And this is actually really simple.
It's brilliant, and like we've as a company we've been in Office 365 for a good while, but we moved to SharePoint for our document management this year, and God, it was one of the most simplest projects to move over to. It really is. It's such a powerful tool. But again, we've shown and shown on previous world tours how we can create Word reports and documents. But now, not only can you create the document, but also move it to the document management system and make sure it's there for people to use and access, and then notify them that the data is there. Like that's real enterprise working, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think especially now, like when everybody is remote, this is brilliant because it just removes all the hassle. There's no VPN to worry about. You're just in. It's very, very flexible. I think, 2020 has really been the right year to release some of this technology.
It drives it on. Well, particularly with the movement towards, I think Teams now is just becoming, I think it's nearly overtaken Zoom as the unified communication system of choice. So it's great to see that kind of stuff in. And again, we're big Teams users ourselves. So then on the automation side on the server, we have seen new web user interface features. So being able to show the time zone and schedules, the look and feel, being able to upload workspaces directly. Funnily, I thought we could do that before this, but I realize now it's not. I thought it was only through the desktop. And then being able to configure the services in the web UI as well, which is great. Again, for the people, again, security is becoming more and more important in these systems. So being able to set password expiry time, being able to reset the password on initial logon for the admin, and then prevent multiple user sessions, and then the administrator can broadcast messages. So again, it is seeing as FME moves into a platform as FME Server, then it's going to be used by multiple users, maybe multi administrators creating workflows. Then having these kind of controls is really, really important. So again, as we mentioned, being able to upload a workspace inside FME Server now saves you having to do the publish button from the desktop, which again works really well if you're using a cloud system or a hosted environment, that you don't have to be worrying about having the desktop sitting there as well. So Gavin, over to you.
Yep, so this is just really showing just how easy it is to upload. So we can come in, we've got the manage workspace option. We just come into there, we can click on the upload here, and now slightly misses off the top, but you can choose your workspace. You can choose the dash repository you want it to go to, just like you would do when you walk through the desktop. So it's really mirroring that desktop workflow that you would do, but you can just do it. Again, we can commit to version control. So if you have version control turned on your server and things, it works really well. Definitely recommend it. But we can put a commit point in, and then we can choose the services as well that we would do. So we can come in and choose these. So it's just giving you an easy way to come through and upload. And I did this yesterday. I wanted to publish a workspace. I'd realized I'd closed Workbench down and forgotten to publish it. I didn't have to wait to reopen Workbench. I could just come in here and quickly upload it. There's a couple of caveats. You have to have any database and web connections, for example, already on the server. The current method doesn't upload those. But I can come in and change the services. So if I realize I've published the wrong service, I can come back in and change them again. So again, that's a nice little tweak, because it's quite often I'll upload something, maybe change my mind if I'm developing a workflow, or just forget to tick one on. Again, I don't have to go through that publication wizard. I can just come in, choose the options, and tweak them on and off and things. So, it's small kind of things. And like Ciaran says, you'd have thought you'd be able to do this since day one. It's taken just over 10 years, 12 years now to bring this in. But it's just tiny little things actually make it a lot easier to work with, and it's just making that little bit more flexible. It's just quicker, easier to understand as part of that process as well. So, and I quite like that edit one, because there's a few times I've forgotten the right service, and you have to go and reopen FME or something to change it when you're developing maybe downstream for some of the webhook type concepts. None of that is anymore. I just come in, tweak it. Very, very simple.
Excellent. And also now, Gavin, we're able to see the workspace files that are on the server. And again, this can be really useful because, we don't really think you should be putting all your data or files up on the server. We think there's better places to put it, but we know what happens. And this way you can interrogate where these where your server is eating up files from people dumping temporary data. Isn't that really what could happen there, Gavin?
Yeah, it's always been a black box. Again, you could never see what you uploaded, and you can see there from that example, we've uploaded quite a lot of imagery in this case. So, we've got quite large volumes there. So you can quite quickly see, what workspaces may be consuming quite a lot of space. If I've got those sorts of volumes of files, that's probably not the best place to put it. So I might want to go and look at why they're there, rework that workspace to move them out. And again, we're not showing it here, but you can click on that little folder link and it will jump you in and show you the folder files as well. So again, it's a good way just to check to see if your workspace isn't working. Do you have all the files that you think you have next to it? Especially when we start looking at logos and templates and things for some of the Word type transformers and the HTML things, they are quite small. You can upload those next to the workspace. So it's something you've always been able to do, but you've never had the visibility of it without going onto the file system, which obviously you're not really supposed to do. So this just makes this so much simpler. And again, it's a really simple tweak, but it's a really, really useful one, I think. It really starts to let you understand what's going on in your workspaces, or workspaces maybe somebody else has published and you've inherited and aren't really sure what they've done. I know that's where we find a lot of these things come in really useful. Somebody does something, you inherit an FME server from somebody who's left post, you know, and you're left scrambling around trying to understand it. And again, there's just that little bit more transparency about what's going on now.
Excellent. And just on the automations, then we now have the FME Server automations writer. They implement the enterprise integration patterns so that we can start building these more complex workflows. So you can disallow concurrent jobs in workspaces, skip a job if another job is in progress, and add an automation and all its dependencies to the FME Server project. So now we can build these kind of complex looping workflows to really provide kind of enterprise services. And again, with the automations, you can pass in the information into an automation, and this can be passed via a notification service or a webhook. And Gavin, I'll let you talk through this. This is your side.
Yeah, so this is really just something that's come in with 2020. Is, you know, 2019 had the automations, but they were fairly basic. 2020 has really started to enrich them, and the key thing you can see here is we've got these additional extra ports. So with previous versions of FME or 2019, you know, it was very much pass-fail. You didn't have a lot of control over your workflow. What we've got now is these additional ports that we can add in directly from the workspace that we can pass information out of. So we can start to be a lot more clever about the information we pass out and then where that needs to go. And then we can start to build up much more complicated workspaces that are a lot more modular. So rather than having one giant workspace that has all of the logic in it, that becomes, you know, quite difficult to manage. You need to make a change to it. You're trying to scramble around where it is. They always get confusing when they get very, very big. Now we can start to take almost like a microservices type approach with these workspaces. You can break them down, have individual workspaces doing very, very targeted things, and then we can pass the information between those. So we can build up these more complicated kind of workflow patterns that, you know, are actually really easy to build. It becomes like building a workspace, you know, within FME Server, but just for the automations kind of workflow and execution and things. So they're really, really handy.
Okay.
And yeah, so this one just explains, obviously, the process on the top left there. We have the feature types for the new server writer in a workspace. So you'd add the FME Server writer, you'd end up with feature types on the canvas, just as you would do with any of the other writers. You know, you can give them, obviously, the feature type names, you give them the attributes that you want, and then they will get surfaced up onto the automation on server, like that example on the right there. So you can see we've got the additional ports for, like, there's no network, PDF map, and processing. So in this case, you know, we might be looking for where we've got a particular data set, you know, maybe looking for if we have network, for example. You know, last year we were showing sort of the ENET example where they're doing sort of, you can come in, do I have network for a particular area? Now you might do, and therefore you want to push that data out to your PDF map, or you might not. There can be two different workflows, two different outcomes. So we can expose both of those from different ports, tie up different parts of Workspace into that. And then the other part of this is once you have that data moving around, you'll see that the port and the attributes become available in basically the keys, what they call keys, as in the FME automation. But so we can use those to either pass into other workspaces or to make, you know, a log, for example. So in that bottom example there, we're just showing the attributes coming through, and then much like we'd use the attribute manager to concatenate something together, we're using the attributes from those ports just to concatenate some messages. But it might be that I want to then send that into another transformer or another workspace, and they will become attributes or parameters to the other workspace. And this is where you might have seen there's a dynamic workspace now in FME as well that basically executes a workspace on demand, and that's chosen by these parameters here. So these parameters will actually control it. So by using these kind of server writers with the attributes here, determines what dynamic workspace you run at runtime. So again, you've got a lot of flexibility to be very, very dynamic in some of the, these automations now.
Okay, and yeah, and there you go.
Yeah, so here we've got that kind of dynamic workflow running through. Again, you can see we've passed and failing them. But we've also got the option to loop. So you can now enable looping. So if you remember in desktop, you've always used to be able to do that with the custom transformers, or so you could run things, loop back around on yourself. You can enable this now on FME Server. It's not switched on by default because, again, you've got really good chance of screwing something up and getting your server locked up into a perpetual loop if you're not careful about the way you design it. So, yeah, it's just there as a, you need to explicitly turn it on and probably think a little bit about your workflow. You know, your errors, how are you going to exit out of the loop? You know, if you get persistently stuck in one, you know, it'd be quite easy to suddenly lock up your server and just have thousands of jobs racking up behind it as part of your process. Now, FME will execute jobs very, very quickly, so it's very, very easy to push information through. But with the right scenario, and especially some of the dynamic workspace, you can build some very smart logic around this to pass information back and run them through. Obviously, it just comes with that slight caveat just to make sure you think through when you're designing it, and look at your edge cases and things probably in a little bit more detail.
Okay. And then with the FME server, we have the new some on the apps. We talked a lot about the apps, being able to create the FME server apps last year, but now we've included, so that was where you could create these nice forms, which could then drive either a report or data capture or whatever kind of workflow you're looking for. Now the guys have also added the ability to pick a geometry off a map, which is really, really cool. So it adds in that information, makes it very easy then for non-coding developers to create apps and server apps to gather information quickly through the workspace and being able to run them. And again, these apps also now have a app authentication, so you can add into your Windows authentication or your Active Directory who can see what apps and who can use them. I'll let you go, Gavin.
Yeah, so this is just showing you how easy it is to add the authentication. So Ciaran says it just picks up the FME server. So I can come in, I can choose what users I want to see this. I can obviously do that at the role level, I can do that at the user level, and I can pick up Active Directory as well if I'm using Active Directory. We add that to the layer. So I can come in, I've got my link, I'm going to log out, I'll just choose a new page. If I paste that link in, you'll see as we hit that landing page, it's now going to just challenge me and say, well, okay, I need to log in to access this app as well. And obviously, it's something I think the server apps came out in 2019. Everybody really liked them, but there was just no authentication around them. And it was kind of a bit of an oversight on Safe's part. I think they didn't realize just how important this is to people. So for 2020, this has been added. So now it works quite well. You just come in, you can click through, and you'd then be able to log into your app just the same way as you would do in any of the kind of other applications. And it's, if you can log in through FME Server, you'll be able to log in through and access the app as well, according to permissions. So again, you choose the permissions, roles, and things associated with this as part of that.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really good. And sorry.
Yep. So this is just that geometry picker in action. So this is taking, that geometry option. We've got a default point in our workspace here. Just so if somebody ran it, it's always going to run against something. But we're going to come in and then we can choose a new point location. So we can navigate round. We can put a point down, and this can be boxes. It can be a line. It can be a polygon. But in this case, we're just putting a point in. We're putting a buffer distance in, and then that gets passed into the workflow. FME takes the geometry, applies that buffer to it, looks for all of the data that is present for that particular area, and then just in this case is returning a simple report for us. I managed to pick somewhere with no data, classically for this one. You can change the background map, and you can change that zoom extent as well. So I just set up Ireland in this case. You could zoom it into Dublin if your data was just for Dublin and things. And we can change the background map to any XYZ tile service that is in Web Mercator. So 3857 essentially. You can drop that background map in, and then you can use that there as well. So I think this is going to be really useful, and I think it'll probably develop in future releases of FME. To make it probably a little bit of a search option. So you've got a little bit more sophisticated search, maybe show some other data layers. We had a couple of customers request as well. At the moment, you can only show the map. You can't show any additional data unless you built your own XYZ service and then fed that into the connection. Obviously, then you could show a little bit more data and things around it. So,
yeah, because I think Safe would always be conscious of not being a GIS to a certain extent of showing the data. I'm not sure how far they might want to go down that road, as opposed to consuming the web services. No?
Yeah. So if you just jump one slide, and then we've got just the geometry parameter. So it's controlled from the workspace. You create a publish parameter just like you would do any of the other publish parameters. It's just this new geometry type. So you can choose whether you want it to be, a point, box, line, or polygon there, and then that will change the controls on the map. You can specify the bounding box for it. So that example there is global. You know, on the other one, I'd reduced it down to Ireland. You could have reduced it down to Cork, to Dublin, wherever, as part of that process. And then obviously that just gets surfaced up. You don't get the map, unfortunately, in desktop at the moment. You only get the map on server. So, you know, you have to work out your bounding box coordinates and things as part of that process. But you know, obviously, once it appears on server, you get the nice shiny map. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future the map made it into Workbench as well, probably with some options around controlling the settings. But yeah, if there's stuff that people do want with this, we'll talk about the community a bit later. But again, you can go on and make suggestions.
Yeah.
So do that, because Safe do really like the customer feedback. And obviously, I know there's a lot of ideas with some of these newer functions coming through. So it's a good place to go and make your point.
And again, I think we're getting a bit tight for time, Gavin. So just on the enhanced app customization.
Yep.
I'll let you just go straight at that.
Yeah, purely just around changing the style. So if you've looked at 2020 or some of the 2019, you'll have seen the app style. It lets you talk a little bit about, or set the logos. For 2020.1, we've now got the option to set a banner. We've got the option to set a footer as well. So again, it's just a small incremental improvement, but makes it a lot nicer when you're building some of the web apps. You know, you can make them fit into your own look and feel a little bit more as we go through with these. So you can see here, you know, we've got the blue banner that fits across the bottom. We've got white banner that just fits with the logo. So again, it's just helping you to make it a little bit more branded, put a little bit more context information in, and you can put bits around in the where it says like the planning housing stock. You can be as verbose or not as you want.
Okay. And just on the web apps?
Yep, they're progressive. So basically all this means, this is the new buzzword for basically saying it works on mobile. So that same web app you can drop down now onto your mobile device. You can also save it as a shortcut onto the device screen. So you're not going into FME every time you hit that button, it jumps you straight to the web app. Yeah, it makes it just a lot easier to use on mobile devices, you know, if you're out doing data collection and things.
Cool. And the server gallery, which is the new feature we all love this year, has been able to create these apps and web links in one central location and have multiple galleries. So did you speak to this, Gavin?
Yeah, I was going to say, probably a lot of you have seen a lot of the really nice ones Garrett's put together. I'm not quite as arty as him, unfortunately, so mine always look a little bit more basic. But again, it's just giving you the functionality to put in either server apps or actually links out to existing websites. And we can nest these as well. So you can have a gallery app called a gallery app. So you might have a landing page for your organization, then split it for external contractors and internal business use. And then in here, we've got the server apps. So these are the server apps we've talked about before that you can create, that you'd run through. You know, you can enable permissions and things on these as you want. So, you know, again, they're very, very simple to build. If you can build a server app, you can build one of these. So if we just log in, all we need to do is, when we get to the server apps, you'll now see you've got the gallery option. So this is only in 2020.1. So if you have 2020, you won't see it. But if you're in 2020.1, you'll have the new gallery option. You know, again, it's like an app. You give it a name. You can put your description in there. And then you've got the options to add links or move existing ones up and down. So we've got a whole host of different ones here. You know, I can move them up and down using the controls on the right there. I can turn authentication on and off exactly the same way we're looking at before. And the customization is that same sort of footer, header, banner. So I think part of this is, once for your organization you have a standardized look and feel, it's very copy and paste. You know, the first few iterations, you might spend a little bit of time playing around with logos, finding icons that work for your organization. Once you have that as a pack, it's just plug and play. You know, you can just add those bits in. And then we can come through and we've got that add link option. And that just is what just allows us to add existing workspace apps. So we can choose an existing workspace app. Yeah, we can give it the label, we can give it a tooltip, so when you hover over it, it pops up, and we can give it an icon. And again, this just makes it a little bit more user-friendly for users who aren't familiar with FME. And that's probably the big win for this, is the fact you can rapidly deploy these without having to really know a lot of HTML or anything. You know, it's a 5-minute job to build the apps once you've kind of got the logos and things up, and you can rapidly publish them out to your organization. And I think that's always been a bit of a gap between, you know, the FME interface being a little bit technical and having to write your own downstream app that users can come in with. This is kind of that middle ground. It gives you a nice, simple out-the-box answer to start to push information out to an organization based on workspaces, but also to be able to link that to other things that maybe they're interested in. So, you might want to have links on there to your SharePoint, for example, or to your CRM and things going through. So you can see how easy it is to build those ones. It takes next to no time.
Okay.
I say Garrett's had great fun with made some really pretty ones.
Okay, I think Gavin, we have to wrap up. So
yeah,
you can get the other links, I think, because we have to get into the next session. So there was some questions that came through, but what I might do is I think you've been answering them on the chat anyway, Gavin. So we'll answer a few, and then maybe later on, and if we get some time back later on, we'll pick up some of the other questions again. There's some good questions there, so we might read them back later on during the day. All right, guys. So I think we're actually run straight into the next session. So we're going to jump out. We'll be back in a second, and we'll start the next session. Gavin, thanks for excellent presentation.
All right.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you in a sec.
Thank you.